Arsenal earn a point at Anfield. Given the circumstances, I think it was a pretty good point. But Mikel Arteta certainly wasn't happy post-match. We're going to break down the game. We're going to discuss his post-match comments. And of course, we'll answer some of your questions and take your thoughts from the live chat throughout this episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner. Thanks for joining me. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another live episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou, coming to you on this Monday morning. The sun is shining bright. I spent the whole day up to the Arsenal game yesterday trying to get my garden sorted, man. When you've got hay fever, it's literally, I did say this to you, I think, on yesterday's pod, it's literally the worst task that you can take on. And I think I'm suffering even more with the hay fever from it today. But I tell you what, it was worth the effort because, yeah, it's just made the world of difference. I know nobody cares about my garden, but I'm just trying to fill up time while you guys join the live stream. So do bear with me. But look, sat down yesterday to watch the Arsenal game. And honestly, I didn't really want to watch it. Going into it, I didn't want to watch it. I'll be honest with you. I sort of set an alarm at about basically I got carried away doing what I was doing, and I thought kickoff's at 4:30. I'm watching the game from home today, not going anywhere. I was like, I'll set an alarm for sort of 3 o'clock, and then that'll be kind of my time to kind of stop what I'm doing, go inside, shower up, get comfortable, settle down, watch the game. And then I kept going and going again, and I thought, should we go to 3:30? And then I changed it to 4. And then at 4 o'clock, I thought, well, I better get inside and get myself sorted so I can sit down and watch this game. But honestly, in the lead up, I just had no enthusiasm for this game whatsoever. I had such little enthusiasm that we said in the intro to yesterday's podcast, we'll look a bit ahead to the game coming up later this afternoon at Anfield, and we didn't even do it because it was just so far down my priority list. And I hate saying that. Like, as an Arsenal fan, I hate saying stuff like that because I don't want to feel that disconnection. I don't want to feel that lack of kind of enthusiasm going into a game against Liverpool, especially. I want to be buzzing for it. I want to be up for it, but I just couldn't get myself to that point. And then the game started the way it did. It was quite frankly terrible. And you're looking at it and you're going, how long's left? Like, when is this going to end? Can I just find something else to do? And then the second half, we were completely different. And the second half, they hooked me and reeled me back in. And I really, really actually enjoyed the second half. So it goes to show, doesn't it, that the mood kind of going into the game was very much on the floor because of what had happened in Paris, because of what's happened over the last few months with regards to the title race. So you ended up getting into a place where, you know, we were just not interested at all. And I think that came through in terms of the performance in that first half. Whatever Mikel Arteta did or said at halftime, it worked because we came out after the break a completely different side, which, quite frankly, based on that first half performance, needed to happen. But that kind of restored my faith in the group and in the manager and in essentially what we're trying to do at Arsenal Football Club. Now, I'm not saying it's a point that we should celebrate for days or weeks or months or anything like that, but it's another game against one of the bigger sides that we've not lost. We've gone to Anfield when they're still very much enjoying the title party. And despite a really shit start and a really shambolic beginning to the game in terms of our defensive levels and all the rest of it, we've managed to draw ourselves back level. And we've managed to take a good point. Not a great point, a good point. And it's quite a significant point when you look at the way the Premier League table's shaping up, because it means that, you know, I think we've got a really, really good chance now of cementing second place, which I've said for a while, to me, at least personally, is really, really important. It's important, I've said it over and over again, that we show that our bottom line is second. Because then that shows you that even when we're not quite good enough to win the Premier League, which has definitely been the case this season, although last season, yeah, we fell short, but I don't think it was because we weren't good enough. It was because Manchester City were bloody much better. No, actually, they weren't much better. They were just better, just about marginally. So this season, we haven't been anywhere near it. That's fair to say. There's no sort of sugarcoating that. That absolutely is the case. But we had to show, and we have to show still, we've got work to be done, that we are the best of the rest, as Mikel Arteta put it post-match. And this was a big point in the sense of it just kind of showcased that. We went to Anfield, we were 2-0 down, we managed to get it to 2-2. Might have won it, they might have won it as well. Let's not pretend that that wasn't the case. But at the end of the day, it's a decent point, and we've taken it away, and we build on that, and we go, let's hopefully get a positive result against Newcastle next weekend, cement our place in next season's Champions League, and then do the business and make sure that we finish second. So, yeah. Let me say a few hellos before we continue. Sean says, how's the hay fever? Mate, it is terrible today. I've already muted the microphone twice in the first 6 minutes to sneeze. I've got a tissue in my hand. It is a terrible, terrible, terrible day for hay fever sufferers. I have to say, I have slacked a little bit on taking the medication, though, this year. So that's not really helping my cause. Kind of only have myself to blame for that. But a big hello to Sean and to everybody else joining us in the live chat. I'm not going to go through every single one of you because I'll end up doing nothing else. It will take us quite a while, I think, to go through everyone. So, yeah, big good morning to everybody who's joining us. And I look forward to breaking down the game with you as we work through today's pod. Okay, shall we start right from the very beginning? Let's talk about the lineup, the team selection. I'll just share my screen with you guys on that so I can bring up the graphic. So Raya in goal. White started at right back because Jurriën Timber wasn't deemed fit enough to play. Was on the bench, but Mikel said that they brought him along, hoping that he'd be okay to play some sort of role, and that wasn't the case on the day. So he remained an unused substitute. Saliba and Kivior continued at centre-back with Lewis Skelly playing at left full-back. And then the midfield comprised of Odegaard, Partey and Merino. There was no Declan Rice yesterday. Now, I remember on Wednesday night when I was out in Paris, I remember putting out a tweet or an X post, whatever you call those things these days, probably about 20, 25 minutes into the game where I said, Declan Rice doesn't look right today. He doesn't look like he's moving right. And I know he had a problem against Bournemouth, right, in the previous Premier League game. And there was concern about, the state that he would be in going into the PSG second leg and all the rest of it. But when I put that post out, you would not believe the amount of stick I got. My God, people coming at me from all angles. What are you talking about? Stop making excuses, blah, 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 blah. I wasn't making an excuse. It was an observation that I had made about Declan Rice on that day. I didn't feel that he was anywhere near close to his best fitness-wise and in terms of his mobility. And lo and behold, just a few days later, he has to miss out entirely on the squad because he's got some sort of problem. So, looks like it was doctor's advice to leave Declan Rice out. And look, given the title's gone, I think it was the right thing to do to not risk him and to not gamble. He hadn't been able to train post PSG. That was revealed to us by Mikel Arteta yesterday. So him not being involved was probably the right thing. But obviously, when you've still got work to do and you realize that Declan Rice is one of your better players, you want him available and you want him fit. It wasn't to be, but it meant Merino dropped back into the midfield. Trossard came in up front and Saka and Martinelli played on the two flanks. Now, we're going to come on to Mikel's post-match analysis and comments a little bit later on in the show. But one of the things that he kept talking about was having kind of nearly half of his team out again. And he's right. If everybody was fit, you'd make the case that Timber probably plays at right back because he's very much made that position his own this season. That Gabriel plays alongside William Saliba. Some might say that Calafiori plays at left back if he wasn't coming back from an injury. Don't know about that one, but that's at least two of your back four missing. Rice would definitely play in midfield. So that's, the third player. And Kai Havertz definitely plays up front if he's fit. So there's at least 4, maybe 5 players that we're unable to start that we normally would if everybody was fit and available. So that's half your outfield team. So when Mikel made that point, I know a lot of people kind of got their backs up and went, oh, here he goes again. I'm not really sure that you can get on his back for that. I think he does have a point there, and I think it kind of highlights and typifies really what our season's been like. But forget the team, forget the injuries, forget all of that stuff. If we just focus on how we performed from the very beginning of that game, it was quite frankly unacceptable. We had a really good moment early on where, with a really smart free kick routine, we were able to get Bukayo Saka in on goal. We used 4 players essentially as decoys, and Saka ghosted in around at the back post. It was a decent delivery. He had time, he had space, he had plenty of opportunity to set himself, and he ends up firing wide. And Arsenal should have been a goal to the good. It wasn't to be, okay, people miss chances, it happens. But that was a really smart free kick routine. I'd assume put together by Nicholas Jova. And, you just feel like in recent times, we've kind of lost our way a little bit in that sense. I don't want us to be this kind of set piece team, right? I don't want us to be a side that is too heavily reliant on set pieces, because I don't think that that's sustainable in terms of maintaining that high level all the time. You've always got to be thinking of new routines, new plans. You've always got to be thinking outside of the box. For the most part, we've done that. We've done it pretty well. But this was a kind of a good sign in that it looked like we'd exhausted all the possible routines and all the possibilities. Yet we've come up with something different this time. And okay, it didn't come off. And the problem with those things is that when you do it once and it doesn't come off, you've kind of used that card now. You've played that card. And I don't know how often you're going to be able to get away with it again. Certainly not within that same game anyway. Like, you've done that. It's worked, but you haven't taken advantage of it. And us not taking advantage of an opportunity that clear cut, again, typifies our season, right? So there were a lot of things on display at the beginning of that game that really did kind of typify our campaign. But what didn't typify our campaign was, in my opinion, a lack of commitment, a lack of concentration. I thought we were so sloppy at the start of the game. We looked as a team, how I felt watching it, like we didn't want to be there. That's the vibe I got. That's the impression I got. And clearly, based on what Mikel said post-match, he felt that too. And that is simply unacceptable. You've got to show some pride. You've got to be wanting to consolidate second place. You've got to be wanting to ensure your Champions League qualification, which there's still work to be done on that, by the way. You've got to have a sense of pride when you go and play a side that you've just had to give a guard of honor to as they walked out on the pitch, because they picked you to a title that should have been yours, that under normal circumstances probably would have been yours. That has got to hurt. You have got to channel that pain in the right way. You've got to want to go out and prove a point. Show them that they're not better than us. Okay, they have been over the course of the season in terms of consistency, but they've been better against everybody else. That's 2-2 draws we've had with them this season. You've got to go out and show something. If for nothing else, for those fans that made that trip up to Merseyside on a Sunday, that gave their afternoon up to go and watch the team, gave up time that they could potentially be spending with friends and family to travel all that way to watch the team, you have got to give them something. And quite frankly, what we saw in that first half an hour especially was unacceptable. Unacceptable. The first goal, my word, terrible, shocking defending from Arsenal. How switched off were we from that quick throw-in? You can't be. You're at Anfield, for God's sake. We've been there enough times over the years and had our asses handed to us to know that you cannot switch off at any moment at Anfield. What do? We switch off. We were caught out by the quick throw-in. There was zero communication between Saliba, White, and Kivior. All three of them, in my opinion, having looked back at the goal and analysed it, were culpable. None of them do their jobs. None of them do their bit. None of them ensure that the team, as a defensive unit, is ready to deal with the quick throw-in. It's Anfield, for God's sake. Pace is what they do in terms of their play. Tempo. We've all seen it before. Not just happen to us. We've seen it happen to lots and lots of teams over the years. It used to happen loads under Jurgen Klopp, and it's continued under Arne Slot. Liverpool come flying at you. That's why that analogy is often used. They come at you like the red arrows. They absolutely do. They swarm around you. They come at you with numbers. They come at you with tempo, with pace, with speed. They suffocate you. They strangle you. And part of the way that they do that is because they move things quickly. They move the ball quickly. And what do? We switch off. Not acceptable. Gakpo comes across at the near post, all the space in the world. It's a good header from him because he starts wide of the near post, but the cross is good, the header's good, fine, but it was all avoidable if we just switched on instead of allowing ourselves to switch off. And if you can't stay alert and switched on at Anfield, you got a problem. I mean, if you're at home in a game that's a bit of a dead rubber and, maybe you don't value as much as others because you've just had to deal with this huge emotional, drainer, if you like, out in Paris on Wednesday night, kind of get that. But you should never go to Anfield and not be switched on. And then within a minute, they score again. Salah's ball in behind Kivior. Szoboszlai latches onto it. Plays it across the face of the goal. And I don't know what on earth William Saliba was doing. He was asleep. He literally did not turn up in that first half an hour yesterday. Completely unaware of Luis Diaz's run. In my opinion, a lack of effort to try and get to the ball first, even when he realizes that Luis Diaz is sprinting towards it. No intelligence applied in terms of maybe trying to step across, in terms of trying to close the corridor. Nothing. Just a labored effort. Not good enough. Not good enough, in my opinion. And, we deserve to go in at halftime 2-0 down. And honestly, I was at a point at that stage in the game where I was like, I don't even want to watch this. I don't even want to watch it. Genuinely, I don't even want to watch it. My wife called me at that point and she said, your dinner's ready. And this was at halftime, about a minute before halftime. And I thought, right, I'm going to go and I'm going to sit down for 15 minutes now and I'm going to have my dinner and I'm going to decide whether I want to watch the remainder of this game. I thought it was going to be 4-5, maybe even worse than that. That's what I was feeling at that point. I was so disillusioned, so frustrated. And I think a lot of us were. And just scrolling through social media at the time, you got that impression from people that this was a totally unacceptable and really, really poor performance. So what changed at halftime? We'll get into that right after this short pause. What changed at the break for Mikel Arteta's men? Because the second half performance, if you compare it to the first, it really, really was night and day. Sorry, I'm just laughing at the comment from Francis. Are those pings your wife trying to get back in the house again? No. My wife is not around at the minute. She's not here today. So there's no chance I'll be getting any pings to go run and answer the door during today's episode of the pod, at least, which I guess is a good thing. But yeah, look, what changed at halftime? That's kind of the big question, isn't it? I can only imagine that they got the hairdryer treatment at the break. Because judging by how pissed off Mikel was in the post-match, he must have been literally frothing at the mouth at halftime. They come out with an intent, with a purpose, with a desire to go and put it right. And some of the post-match stuff was really, really interesting because what he was kind of saying was, if that happens after 70, 75 minutes, when we've got players out there that are dead on their feet, players out there that have had a really exhausting week that are nowhere near the level fitness-wise, and we drop off and we suffer, I can kind of understand that. But to start the game the way we did was just so far from the standards and the level that he set. He just couldn't accept it. And the team come out and the team were great. Right from the beginning of the second half, they were fantastic. And 2 minutes into the half, we pull a goal back. And it was a really interesting goal in a lot of ways, because while we've been debating who should play at centre forward in the absence of Havertz and Jesus, and before I think we landed necessarily on the Mikel Merino solution, there was a lot of talk about Gabriel Martinelli maybe going up there. And I think the general feeling was that he's a little bit too wasteful in front of goal. to be the guy that you kind of use to spearhead your attack. Against low blocks, he certainly doesn't feel like the right option. But in a game like this at Anfield, where you are going to play against a high line, where you're going to play against a team that, for the most part, want to be on the front foot, actually, that might not be the worst idea in the world. And so Gabriel Martinelli spent the first chunk of the second half playing in the middle with Trossard going back out to the left. And it was those two that combined for the goal. Trossard's delivery into the box, Martinelli really clever in the way that he ghosts in between the two centre-halves, and then Martinelli displaying the type of finish that, if I'm being brutally honest, he just hasn't displayed anywhere near often enough in the last season or so. He doesn't need to get too much on the ball. All he needs to do is glance it towards the far post, and that's exactly what he does, and he scores. And I remember at that point, as the ball sort of went into the back of the net, having a bit of a flashback to the Gabriel Martinelli we saw breaking into that Arsenal team back in the Unai Emery days, right? Where he would score goals with his head in Europe. Okay, in the Europa League against some lesser opponents. But I remember when he first broke through thinking, man, this kid's a finisher. This kid's a real goal threat. Not just with his feet, but with his head as well. Ghosting in, drifting into the right areas. And that side of his game hasn't really been on display anywhere near enough, I don't think, in recent times. He's done other things well. I'm not saying he's been a complete disaster. No, I'm not saying that for a second. But that is something that he sort of displayed in the early stages of his Arsenal career. And then that kind of went missing. But here he was, drifting into the right area and being maybe more instinctive than anything else in terms of the way that he heads the ball, glances the ball towards goal. And Arsenal are right back in this game. And we were growing and growing and growing. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, where the hell was this from the beginning of the game? Is there an element of Liverpool getting a bit complacent? 2 goals in 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever it was. They're already champions. They don't really need to exert themselves. It is all one big party and the result is immaterial to them. Is there an element of that? Did that aid us in our sort of pursuit of a way back into the game? I'm sure it did. So I don't want to dismiss that element completely. But for me, that was a really well-worked goal. Really, really good finish. And Arsenal were growing in confidence and were in the ascendancy moving forward. And then on 70 minutes, Mikel Merino levels the score. And there's a couple of things I really love about this goal. Is it the best goal on the eye? Is it the prettiest goal? No, it's not. But there's a couple of things I really like about this goal. So I do want to just spend a couple of minutes talking about it. The first thing is that Martin Odegaard, having carried the ball into a threatening position, believed in his own ability to take the shot on. We've not seen anywhere near enough of that from Martin Odegaard recently. We've seen him hesitate. We've seen him take an extra touch. We've seen him roll it left or right rather than taking it on himself. And it's a fantastic effort, forces a really, really good save out of Alisson. But when the ball breaks, the thing I like about the second part of it is that Mikel Merino once again displays his goal-scoring instincts, this time playing from midfield. He's the quickest to react. He's the sharpest. He's alert. He's alive to the possibility of the ball breaking loose. And then he stoops down and heads it into the back of the net to make it 2-2. And there was a question mark of offside. Obviously, the VAR checked it and Mikel Merino was onside. Trent Alexander-Arnold, the secret agent, maybe you could say, was the guy playing him on. But the reason I really like that goal was because I saw a sign of Martin Odegaard and him sort of building his confidence back up. I saw a sign of what Martin Odegaard was and should be, just sort of starting to creep back in, which was great. And then I see Merino displaying those instincts even when he's playing from a midfield position. So lots to like about that goal. And all of a sudden we were back on level terms. And I'll tell you what, we could have gone on and won it. I know Liverpool could have gone on and won it as well. They missed a couple of chances at 2-2 and they thought they had a goal through Robertson, but Konate was pulled up for committing GBH against Miles Lewis-Skelly inside the penalty area. It's one of those where it could have gone either way in the end. But you can't dismiss the fact that Arsenal have managed to drag themselves back into a game where they look dead and buried at probably the hardest place to go in the league. Now, is it as hard as it would have been had Liverpool still been hunting down the title, or if this was a title decider. Probably not. In fact, definitely not. But it's still a positive result and outcome given the circumstances around the game in the lead up to it, and given how the kind of first half transpired and the fact that we put ourselves in a really shit position. So there are positives to take away from it, but you've got to use the negative feeling as motivation moving forward. And there is a negative feeling. I remember when the game kicked off and it all looked a little bit flat and the Anfield atmosphere was a little bit flat. I remember thinking this game could have been everything. This game could have been a title decider, essentially. 2 games out from the end of the season, the 2 contenders going head to head. This could have been where it was all decided. There could have been so much at stake here. And instead, it was like a preseason friendly that we didn't turn up in for the first 45 minutes. And maybe Liverpool didn't turn up in for the second 45 minutes. So I'm not saying that, we should be jumping up and down and sort of waxing lyrical about this performance for weeks and months. And it should be a reference point to kind of where we are versus Liverpool this season. They've been head and shoulders better than us and miles in front of us, etc., etc. The point I am trying to make is a simple one. You don't need to overreact in a positive way to the result, but you also don't need to dismiss it completely because Liverpool are already champions. The right way to assess this game, in my opinion, is to look at it from somewhere in the middle of those 2 viewpoints. We talked about a lack of pride and a lack of fight in that first half. We went out in the second half and we put that right. And we got our point. And the reason I say that's a significant point is because, let me just bring up the Premier League table and I'll show it to you guys. Hold on a second. There we go. So here's the Premier League table, right? That point put us on to 68 points. Now, had we been on 67, that would have meant that Manchester City would be able to get above us if we dropped a couple of points against Newcastle next Sunday. But because we've got up to 68 now and we have a superior goal difference to Manchester City, barring a massive swing, even if we lose and they win, they don't go above us. And then obviously it goes to the final game where we play against Southampton. Now, there is a risk that we lose out on second place to Newcastle because Newcastle come to Emirates Stadium next weekend, but at least that's in our hands. I'd rather be competing with them because it's in our hands. I'm not saying that Man City are out of it, by the way. They could still finish second. And the way we've been sort of up and down this season, I wouldn't put it past us blowing second place right now. But getting that point rather than no points, it does make a difference in the grand scheme of things. So that's kind of why I feel quite good about the point. And again, psychologically, there's probably something to be taken away from it as well. That's a lot of games now we've played against the bigger sides and we've remained unbeaten. Have we won enough of them? Probably not. But we're not losing them. And even in our state currently, after Wednesday, with the players we've got missing and going down to 10 men again, by the way, which we'll come on to in just a second, we've managed to get decent results. So that's the kind of positive side of it, right? I'm going to take your questions and thoughts in a minute, so start getting them into the live chat. But I just want to touch on this Mikel Merino red card. I think Mikel Merino's silly to make that challenge when he's already booked. He's made one just before it that he's kind of got away with. And then he makes one seconds afterwards and ends up getting himself sent off. Now, for me, it was a worthy red, like a second yellow. It's not a red, it's a second yellow. And that's what the decision was. That's correct. It was Merino tired. It was Merino maybe, blowing out of his backside, exhausted. It's not just tiredness in terms of physically, it's mentally as well. And I think when you're tired like that, you can make the wrong decisions. And I think he does make the wrong decision there. But I do think you've got to attribute some of the blame here to David Raya for playing him a bloody hospital pass. And for my personal liking, David Raya's done that way too much recently. He's done it way too much recently. He's done it with Saliba. We've been talking about Saliba mistakes quite a bit of late. in those sort of defensive situations when receiving the ball. And for me, not enough was made of Raya's role in that. And so it's important that we make the point here that Raya's made an error here as well. You can see the pitch, man, as the goalkeeper. You should know better. And I know that there's an instruction in place to play out from the back. And I know that's part of our model and all the rest of it. But sometimes you've got to use your common sense. And he doesn't apply common sense there. He plays a stupid pass, puts Merino into all sorts of trouble. Merino could handle it better for sure. But if I was Mikel Merino, I'd be fuming at David Raya in the dressing room after saying, you got me sent off, or at least played a major part in it by playing me that awful, dreadful pass in that position. And I like Raya, right? He's had a great season, I think, overall. But just in the last few weeks, I felt like we've been using him too much to play out from the back. And when we're out of ideas, the kind of the default is just to keep going back to David Raya. And I don't want David Raya being our playmaker. I don't want David Raya having the responsibility all of the time to progress the ball for us or to play it through the lines. I don't mind us using David Raya at times to achieve that because he can do it. But it shouldn't be the go-to. And it feels like it's become the go-to recently. So I think that's something that we need to address and something that we need to look at. That's the 6th time, as I say, that we've played with 10 men this season, but 4 out of 6 of those were contentious at best. And so, Arteta's right to bring that up because it's obviously given us a disadvantage, but at the same time, he has every right, I think, to feel aggrieved by the way some of them have come about. Now, people will say, well, you shouldn't keep getting players sent off. And I think Mikel Arteta has been quite clear on that actually, yeah, we've got to do something about this to stop it happening. But when 4 out of the 6 red cards are debatable, you have every right, I think, to feel unlucky. Some of them were given for things that we'd never seen them given for in the past. Unprecedented red cards, if you like, particularly at the start of the season. I don't have any complaints about the one yesterday. And I don't have any complaints about Lewis Skelly being sent off against West Ham because I thought that was a red card too. But think about it. That then leaves 4. 1 was overturned. 2 were ridiculous, the sort of flicking and kicking of the ball away. And the one that Saliba got at Bournemouth, we literally saw 3 incidents the next day that were all very, very similar, that were punished with yellow cards. So I think we've got every right to feel annoyed about that. But anyway, I do want to move on to Mikel Arteta's press conference and some of his post-match reaction because I thought that was really, really interesting. And we're going to take your questions and thoughts right after this really short pause. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, Harry Symeou.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
Like, subscribe, and all the rest of it. If you haven't done so already, in fact, should we check out where we're at in terms of likes on the video currently? If you're with us live on YouTube right now, that stuff really, really does help. So please do help. 52 likes on the ball. Come on, guys. There's hundreds of you watching. That's nowhere near good enough. Let's get to at least a ton. Surely that should be doable. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you're listening on audio, whether that's Apple or that is Spotify, then please do leave us a review. If you want to be a patron, you can. I really do appreciate the support from our patrons. And I can tell you in the summer, it's really, really helpful. I know we do a lot of content during the summer where we talk about transfers, we do scouting reports and all the rest of it. But obviously the rest of my work dries up. I don't have any matches to commentate on. I'm not reporting on any games. And so the patron thing becomes even more significant and even more important to me during the summer. So if you want to become a patron, there is a Arsenal squad audit episode that is currently uploading. So that's going to be live in about 5 minutes time. You'll be able to access that. And of course, we've got player ratings from the Liverpool game that you'll also be able to access in about half an hour's time. So there's 2 exclusive bits of Patreon content that will be available to you right after you finish listening to this, if you sign up and become a patron. You can do so via the link in the description. There's no pressure whatsoever, but if you'd like to support the pod, that is the way to do it. Thank you very, very much in advance. Okay, let's quickly talk about Mikel's post-match comments, and then we will tackle your questions and thoughts from the live chat. He said after the game, "I hate reaction. I like action." I think he's right. I think he wanted to see that level of application that we saw in the second half from the beginning, and he's right to be frustrated at the fact that that wasn't the case. I thought he was really, really frosty and spiky in the Sky interview. But then I watched the match of the day one, and I've seen the press conference, and I don't think he was anywhere near as spiky in those. So has he got an issue with Sky? Has he taken issue with something one of their guys has said? Did he take issue with some of the questions that were being put to him? I do think some of the questions that were being put to him, and I know to a degree it's the reporter's job, but I do think some of them were a little bit, I don't know what the term is, but it felt like they were trying to wind him up. And that might not have been the intention. I don't know. I don't know the reporter. I couldn't possibly comment on what the intention was, or if there was a deliberate attempt to try to get him to say certain things or to get that line. We know that reporters' jobs are to get lines. But I just found it interesting that his interview with that particular broadcaster was in a completely different tone to the interviews and the press conference that he gave post-game to some other outlets. So I find that very, very interesting. In the Sky one, he seems spiky. There's no getting around that. And I remember watching it and thinking, come on, man, you don't really need to be like this. It's clear that the last week emotionally has got to Mikel Arteta. You know, that realization that your season's going to end up being one where you don't achieve what you set out to. It could take time to get over that. And when you crash out under the circumstances we did in Paris, you know, and you sort of then have to come to the home of the champions when it should have been your year, give them a guard of honor, watch your team fail to turn up in the first half, but then even with all those issues and problems, be able to draw back level, you're probably sitting there and thinking, where the was this all season? And I can understand why he was angry and why he was annoyed and why he was frustrated. But as I said, post PSG, he's got a responsibility, in my opinion, to manage these situations better. The more likable you are, the more warm you are, the easier a ride you're going to get from the press and from media. And then I listened to kind of like Jamie Carragher's comments afterwards, where he said, you know, I listened to that interview and I felt like he was more talking more like a fan than as the manager of the football club. And I just thought, you hypocrite. You sat there for maybe 6 or 7 minutes prior to Mikel Arteta coming out for that interview, talking about the passion required to play for Liverpool Football Club. The fact that when you were playing, you would take decisions based on 50% of what you wanted and 50% of what you thought the fans would want or what the fans were feeling. To say all of that stuff, to talk about the emotion, to kind of really prop up that point, and then have a go at Mikel Arteta for being quite passionate in his interview and clearly upset. It's just so hypocritical. And listen, not all Liverpool fans do this, or not everybody associated with Liverpool does this, but Jamie Carragher does this, and it winds me the hell up. Liverpool Football Club means the world to Liverpool fans. But guess what? Arsenal Football Club means the world to Arsenal fans. Manchester United means the world to Manchester United fans. Chelsea means the world to Chelsea fans. This idea that they love their club more than any of the rest of us. And so they're justified in saying things like that. And they're justified in booing Trent Alexander-Arnold, a wonderful servant to the football club. Not just when he came on the pitch, but every single time he touched the ball, to me, is wild. If that was us, oh my word, can you imagine the reaction? He's telling everyone, don't tell Liverpool fans how to feel. Well, don't tell Arsenal fans how to feel about their manager giving a clearly quite passionate post-match interview. Some Arsenal fans would take issue with it, probably didn't like it. That's fine. You don't need to tell them how to feel about it. And haven't you been banging on all week, Jamie, about the need to stop telling fans how they should feel about things? The hypocrisy is wild. It really, really is. Really, really is. But yeah, look, Mikel Arteta really upset. He was asked in the press conference if the reaction in the second half kind of made up for the shit show of the first. And he said, no, actually, it makes it worse because it means that his team, and I'm paraphrasing here, were not applying themselves in the way that they should or could be. So, yeah, I think he was clearly upset. And I think he was trying to make the point that, look, guys, we've got standards here. And, as long as we maintain those standards, yeah, we've been unlucky so far. And we might not have managed to get over the line, but maintaining those standards makes us competitive. And if we're not competitive, we stand no chance of winning. So we've got to maintain that. We've got to keep that up. We've got to ensure that that's what we deliver every single time we take to the pitch. And he didn't feel that was the case at the weekend. So some people will take issue with his comments. I did find him a little bit spiky, as I say, in the Sky interview, but I think that might have been something to do with Sky now that I've seen some of the other ones. And if that's the case, then judging by what we've had to listen to from Jamie Carragher's probably got a point in that. But just one stat I wanted to highlight, which they highlighted on Sky, by the way, which I thought was really, really interesting. And it goes to kind of speak for that point of the standards have been high. Obviously, that then doesn't guarantee that you get over the line. But I think when you zoom out, you can understand why maybe Mikel and some of the other people involved with Arsenal Football Club feel that we've been really unlucky. So across the last 3 seasons, Manchester City have picked up the most points. This is across the last 3 seasons, 245 points. And that has resulted in 2 Premier League titles. Arsenal have managed 241 points, so just 4 points less than Manchester City across the last 3 seasons and have 0 titles. So that shows you that in terms of points returns, we're there or thereabouts. City earning 4 more points than us across the last 3 seasons has them winning 2 Premier League titles and us winning none. And then you've got Liverpool in 3rd place, 232 points across the last 3 seasons. So 9 points less than us accumulated over the last 3 campaigns, yet they have 1 league title and we have none. Someone said, can you show us the stats? I've got it. I took a screenshot of it on my phone because I was watching it on TV at the time. There you go. So there you go. Manchester City, 245 points across the last 3 seasons, resulting in 2 Premier League titles. Arsenal, 241 points across the last 3 seasons, resulting in 0 titles. Liverpool, 232 points, resulting in 1 Premier League title. So I'm not saying that that makes it all okay and that we should be happy with not winning anything because we've got the 2nd highest points tally across the 3 seasons. I'm basically making the point that when people say you've got no standards, it's complete and utter bollocks because our standards have been higher than Liverpool's over the course of the last 3 seasons in terms of what we've managed points-wise. But the standards can be high and you still fall short. And so we know that we've got work to do and we know that we've got more to deliver. And we know that we've got more to ensure that we're on top of in order to get to where we want to get to. But this idea that we're not competitive is nonsense. And that proves that. Okay, let's take some of your thoughts and questions from the live chat then. Let's take this from Guitar Solo, who says, what is your take on the mentality of the players? I don't think these players have been hardened by these title near misses. They still have the same naive mentality they had 3 seasons ago. Mentality is a really hard thing to judge because mentality a lot of the time is judged by results and it doesn't always necessarily have that direct correlation. So you can go out into a game of football with the right attitude, with the right mindset and be beaten by a team that are better than you because they took their chances because technically they're at a high level. I believe that's what happened to us against PSG. I don't put it down to a lack of effort, a lack of application, or some sort of mental issue. I put it down to the fact that they were better than us in the final third. They took their moments. That is an issue of quality rather than an issue of mentality. So I don't want to go down the mentality route too much because I always think it's such a gray area, such a difficult thing to judge. We don't know what's going on inside the player's head. So how can we really judgmentality with any accuracy. So I'm reluctant to go down that route. Someone said in the chat that Tom Canton, and I'm not going to have any shit thrown at Tom Canton, by the way, in the chat, because he's a friend of mine, and it's not nice, right? And it's completely unnecessary. He's a friend of mine, so I'm going to defend him. Get lost with the Tom Canton slating. It's not on, and I will block people that do that. But just to highlight how stupid some of the criticism is, why does Tom basically copy your pod word for word? Tom records before me every single day. Every single day. How could he possibly copy something that I haven't even said yet? Come on, man. It's nonsense. I said I'm not going to bite at shit in the chat, and I shouldn't, but I'm going to defend my mate, man. That's nonsense. What else have we got here? Andy says, what do you think is the order of recruitment since a 6 seems wrapped up? 9 next at all costs, or could we see other incomings before that? I would still personally go out and get another midfielder, but it wouldn't be the number one priority because there's obviously that possibility that Thomas Partey stays. I think in order of priority, 6 looks like it's done, as you say. 9 has got to be number one. The club are never going to live it down if they don't bring in a 9 this summer. So they've got to do that. They've got to bring in a 9, and they've got to bring in a top 9. I would then look at bringing in a left winger because I think we need more attacking weapons. And so that's important to me. And then you got to look at the goalkeeping situation. We need another goalkeeper. That might be another loan type thing if it's not someone that we think is going to be able to compete with David Raya. We've seen before that even when he's got 2 decent goalkeepers at the club, Mikel's not going to rotate him. So Raya is going to be the number one, but you need to supplement that in some way. Does he feel like any of the goalkeepers we have internally can step up and do that? That's a big kind of question that we're going to have to see. But for me, it's with 6 wrapped up, it's 9 and it's a left winger. Those are the 2 things I really want to see us do. What else have we got in the chat? Steve says, Harry, how did the barbecue go? Oh, barbecue always goes well, mate. Thank you very much. Do you have my doggy bag? I think it might be a bit cold by now. He says, keep up the amazing content, mate. And as I said, ignore the trolls. I'm trying my best. I am trying my best. Junior Gunner says, what I saw from Liverpool when they build up is about 4 or 5 runners off the ball. In about 7 or 8 passes they're in. Every pass we make is pre-planned and the ball's played to feet. Mikel Arteta is so risk-averse. Will it change? I think that's a lot to do with what we come up against as well as what we do ourselves. I really do believe that. I do think Liverpool are more direct than us. And I do think Liverpool are far more creative than us. And I would back Liverpool to score goals over us any day of the week. But I think that comes down to, again, what I was talking about a little bit earlier on, which is just pure quality. Like they've got so much quality in the attack. Like Mo Salah's on a level like nobody else in the league. And then you've got people like Luis Diaz who really kind of supplement him in a great way. You've got people like Jota at the club. You've got Darwin Nunez, who I know gets a lot of stick, but can come off the bench and be really useful. Cody Gakpo's developed since he's joined the football club. They've got so much attacking talent that's always going to make them more potent in the box and more of a threat. So, yeah, I really do think that Liverpool just have greater quality in the final third. And that's why when you ask what I would do in the summer, my second priority is an attacker as well. First is a 9. Second is a left winger. And even without the Zubimendi thing, I'd probably still make a case that we need a second attacker before we need another midfield player. So that says a lot, doesn't it, about what I think about the forward line. And I've said it time and time again this season. I think we lack quality in that area. I said it a lot after PSG because I really felt it kind of came to light over those 2 legs. And so, yeah, that's what I want to see us do in terms of the summer. Right, I am going to leave it there. Thank you so much. Going to bring you the player ratings over on Patreon very shortly. I'll be hitting the record button on that as soon as this live stream ends. So in the next 20 minutes or so, you can expect to see that uploaded. If you want to become a patron, visit the link in the description, patreon.com/Chronicles of a Gooner, and you can sign up and support. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you are joining us on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, please do leave us a review because that really does help. And I'll see you all very soon. Until the next one, take care of yourselves. Have a great day. All the best. Goodbye.